Almost everywhere on Earth, people know stories of giants and other fantastic beings. Despite several archaeological finds that provide evidence of the actual existence of giants, renowned scientists keep waving them off. All just fantasy and superstition, they say. See for yourself. We now show you 7 of the most interesting clues to the true existence of giants. Are you fascinated by mysterious things and archaeological discoveries? Then give us a thumbs up, subscribe to Hidden Worlds, and join us on our journey. The giants of ancient Egypt and the gigantic finger. Most references to oversized people and giants are found in Egypt. Besides depictions on reliefs and works of art, there are written documents. The Egyptian pharaoh Khafre, for example, is said to have been 5 cubits and 3 palms tall. According to today's cubit measurement, this would correspond to a body height of 5 meters. Unfortunately, we no longer know exactly how long a cubit was in ancient Egyptian times. Khafre is one of the few regions whose mummy has not been officially found. There are only a few statues that the man had made of himself about 5,000 years ago. However, these show the ruler seated and provide no clues as to his actual size. Shortly after Khafre, Pharaoh Sarnakhd ruled over the land on the Nile. It's known that he was about 1.9 meters tall during his lifetime. That doesn't sound particularly spectacular today, but around 2715 BC, even the tallest Egyptians were barely more than 1.5 meters tall. Experts explain the pharaoh's gigantic stature with a genetic defect. If the pituitary gland releases too much growth hormone, it becomes what we still know today as gigantism. Affected people grow far beyond the normal size. The tallest man in the world, Robert Pershing Wadlow, with a height of 2.72 meters, was one of the most famous people to suffer from hormonally induced gigantism. In 1895 and 1896, several US newspapers reported a find of mummified giants in the Temple of Isis. A professor named Timmerman was said to have found the remains of a conspicuous number of people between 2.5 and 3 meters tall as early as 1881. However, the artifacts disappeared and have not reappeared to this day. The only exception is a finger. In the 1980s, a collector of antiquities, a Swiss named Gregor Spory, showed the finger, which was about 35 centimeters long. It was supposed to come from one of the giants from the Isis temple. Spory photographed the artifact several times. Unfortunately, when the Bild newspaper became interested in the story, the owner of the finger could no longer be found in Egypt. The graveyard of the giants in China. Around 5,000 years ago, people who were unusually tall apparently lived in the area of today's Shandong province in China. Measurements of bones found revealed heights of 1.8 to 1.9 meters. Again, the sizes have to be seen in relation to each other in order to understand the giant stature. At the time of the Longshan culture, other peoples in the region were at most 1.6 meters tall. Since the measurements refer only to the bones, the living people must have been quite a bit taller. The tallest may have exceeded the 2-meter mark. But how can this be? The head of the Institute of History and Culture at Shandong University blames differences in supply. He suspects that the giants were a kind of priestly caste. Numerous sacred buildings found in the vicinity of the graves support this. Presumably, the tall people never worked and had access to better food than the rest of the population. In the 104 houses, 205 graves, and 20 sacrificial pits, the researchers found further clues about the lifestyle of the giant people. In fact, they seem to have been very wealthy. Their main diet consisted of millet and pork. Incidentally, the famous Chinese philosopher Confucius also lived very close to Shandong, about 2,500 years later. According to tradition, Confucius was also unusually tall, standing at about 1.9 meters. Giants on Mars. Mars is one of the best researched celestial bodies in our solar system. Mankind has already sent around 50 probes to our neighbor. Where this special interest comes from is clear. Mars resembles Earth the most. Time and again, the red planet is considered a hot candidate for extraterrestrial life, and it may be colonized by humans at some point in the distant future. For decades, NASA's Viking orbiter, Mars rover Spirit, and Mars rover Curiosity have taken a particularly large number of exceptionally good images of the Martian surface. On some of the more recent images, US ufologist and conspiracy theorist Scott C. Waring has identified the remains of a giant. In his opinion, the images show the remains of a gigantic battle on Mars, Entities with a body size of between 3.5 and 4 meters are said to have clashed with each other, but Waring does not only see the bones of a fallen giant in the Martian dust. In his opinion, parts of armor and an ultralight weapon, probably a lightsaber, can also be seen. As usual, NASA waves it off. It's all a deception. The phenomenon behind this is called pareidolia. The brain recognizes shapes and patterns in the stone structures that resemble something to a large percentage. Then the brain puts the rest of the picture together according to the first assessment without checking further facts. Only at a second glance is the illusion recognizable. Incidentally, this also explains the Martian face that Viking Orbiter 1 transmitted to Earth as early as 1976. The same phenomenon provided us with the Martian Man and the Martian Skull, photographed by Mars rover Curiosity in 2014. So again, there seems to be nothing to the actual evidence of giants. Biblical giants in Israel. According to the Bible, the Philistine Goliath was a giant of 6 cubits and a span tall. Only by cunning could he be defeated by the much smaller David. Whether the stories in the Bible are true or not is just as much a mystery as that of the giants. Excavations in Israel, however, have now brought to light interesting details about the Philistines. Their former city of Gath does indeed have some peculiarities. Almost everywhere in the country in the era around 1100 BC, people built with stones that were no more than half a meter long. But in ancient Gath, people used stones that were 1 to 2 meters long. The exposed buildings also raise some questions. Everything in Gath seems oversized. Rooms are unusually large, streets extremely wide, and stairs extremely high. The walls of almost all buildings are more than 2 meters high, which was also highly unusual for the time. One could actually think that giants lived here. It's also striking that Gath had hardly any defensive facilities, yet the city must have been an unusually highly developed and prosperous center at the time. Did the people have no enemies because they were so large? Again, friends of the giant theory have to accept a disappointment. All the skeletons found in and around Gath were no larger than the average humans of the time. The giant ape Gigantopithecus blacki. We all know King Kong, the giant ape. Could he at least have really existed? The prospects of hitting the bullseye here are not bad at all. For several 100,000 to millions of years ago, the largest ape of all time lived. Gigantopithecus blacki is said to have stood up to 3 meters tall on its hind legs. However, this oversized prehistoric ape moved mostly leaning on its forelimbs, just as modern apes do. The existence of the giant ape is known for numerous finds of teeth and a few bones. Most of them were found in the area of today's China. From the outside, Gigantopithecus blacki must have resembled today's orangutans. The creature probably had very long and strong arms. Genetic tests proved a true relationship to living orangutans, but these cute apes today only reach a maximum height of 1.6 meters, standing upright. Footprints of a giant in China. In 2016, a group of amateur photographers made a fascinating find. In a granite block, they found the imprints of 2 truly gigantic feet. The 2 matching prints measured approximately 57 centimeters long, 20 centimeters wide, and 3 centimeters deep. By comparison, the normal foot length for men averages 18 centimeters. The prints are located in southwest China near Pingyang village in Guizhou province. An official investigation of the find is still pending. The authenticity of the giant footprints is doubted by recognized researchers. The rock is clearly granite that is several million years old. No giant in the world would leave a footprint in this hard rock. It's much more likely that a prankster or artist has had a go here and the footprints have been chiseled into the stone. The fabulous realm of the giants in Death Valley. Death Valley in eastern California is known as one of the hottest and most hostile places on Earth. Strangely enough, this inhospitable stretch of land has been inhabited for more than 9,000 years. In 1931, a doctor and amateur archaeologist is said to have found a legendary place in this desert. According to Dr. F. Bruce Russell, there was an extensive tunnel system under the dust-dry earth. Russell discovered the access by chance when he fell into an old mine shaft. With his colleague Dr. Daniel S. Bovey, he investigated the extensive cave system for several weeks. The 2 men found endless passages, cavities, sacred places, and finally several mummified bodies in wooden boxes. Photographs show the two explorers next to one of the mummies. Clad only in a loincloth, the human remains must have been around 3 meters tall. At the time, no official archaeologist was interested in the find. Only a newspaper printed the photos and adventurous stories of the two men. In fact, the indigenous Paiute tribe still living here today knows the legend of the underground kingdom of Shinoav. There, the dead Paiute are said to live in a paradisiacal valley. However, the legends of the tribe never mention giant people. Years later, when a commission wanted to look into the matter, Russell and Bovey allegedly could not find the entrance to the legendary kingdom. A few months later, both men disappeared under mysterious circumstances. So there they are, the 7 finds of giant humans. How did you like the photos and evidence? Did you think any or all of these finds could actually be real? Let us know and write your opinions and stories in the comments.